Welcome back to another episode of Dollars and Cents. But as always, let's keep it real, as in real estate. Every month, I like to take on a topic of the subject of growing or managing your wealth. And this month, we're talking about a common but difficult issue that couples go through, getting divorced. Well, divorce obviously has a huge emotional impact on couples and families, and let's be honest, it also impacts people's financial situations. This is a very sensitive topic, but we're going to do our best to navigate through it and give you some insights on how to protect yourself and make decisions about major assets like your home during a divorce. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest today, Stephanie Fortis from Sindel Noble.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us. Well, Stephanie, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Hopefully we can help the audience out. First question that I have is, how important is it for each party to get their own attorney?
Well, it's a common question and a common misperception that people can have one lawyer represent both of them, and they cannot. The rules of professional ethics forbid one lawyer from representing two parties with separate interests. It's a conflict of interest. So what can happen, though, is that one spouse can hire one lawyer and take all the agreements that those spouses have made to that lawyer, who can draft the agreement, give it back to their client, and the client can take that information back to the other spouse. Gotcha. So that's a common situation. It works best when both parties are similarly situated financially and when there are no children involved. When there are kids involved and custody, visitation, child support become issues, then you really need to get two lawyers.
Yeah, I can tell you from personal experience, getting it done quick in the long run can cost you a lot more. Because I did one of those with one attorney, and then I paid about 5 times more over the next 5 years getting it done properly.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, pay on the front as opposed to paying a lot more in the end. So another question I have for you. So you're getting divorced, you got kids involved. How smart is it to either leave the home while you're going through the divorce staying? I know there's a term out there, abandonment issue. How real is that?
That comes up regularly when people first come in to meet with me, and actually it's not an issue. So it's common, and obviously it is expected when parties get divorced that they are going to separate and set up two households. So there's no problem with a spouse who decides that they are going to get divorced they can go ahead and leave the house and separate and set up their own household. There is not an abandonment issue. I think that comes from an old idea when in divorce you used to have to allege grounds. One of the grounds would have been abandonment. But Missouri is what's called a no-fault state, and now you don't have to allege grounds for a divorce. So if you're in a situation where you're living together and that marriage is volatile, you absolutely can go ahead and leave the marital residence and set up and establish your own home.
Right. Yeah, no-fault state, that comes up in my office as well. Just, I'm going to take him for everything because he cheated on me, or she's been running around. It might look bad to the public, right? But that doesn't really determine your financial obligation.
It doesn't, and unfortunately, it's a bitter pill for people to swallow because they're already dealing with this betrayal, and then you have to explain to them that the job of the divorce court is to separate the assets and to be aware that we have one household that's working with one pot of money, and now we're going to have two households with the same pot of money. Right. So it's long gone are the days where you could take people for what they were worth because they commit adultery. Right. That's just not the case anymore.
Right. Well, speaking of money, alimony, maintenance, those words are interchangeable, right?
Maintenance is the legal term, but most people understand alimony. Okay. I know what they're talking about.
Yeah, so in either case, so maintenance, alimony, or child support, is there like a rule of thumb that people out there kind of can think about if they're facing a divorce? How long is either the only earning spouse or the one that makes the true breadwinner in the family, how long would they expect to pay?
For child support, the law is set forth in a statute. And child support ends if a child is 18 years old if they are not full-time enrolled in school. But if the child is full-time enrolled in school, then child support ends at the age of 21. Now, the statute's very clear and sets out obligations for that child to give information to the supporting parent. So that child has to tell the supporting parent how many hours they're taking. They have to be full-time enrolled in school. They've got to provide transcripts. You can't essentially cut the supporting spouse out of the picture. That child has to give information to their parent in order for that child support obligation to continue. So that's child support. Maintenance, however, is a different issue. There's two ways that a judge can order maintenance. A judge can order maintenance after a trial for an indefinite amount of time. And it's up then to the parties to go back to court when there's a change in the situation to either reduce the maintenance obligation or to increase the maintenance obligation. But there is law in Missouri that says that the spouse is under an obligation to become self-sufficient. The second way that maintenance is awarded in the state of Missouri is by contract, and that's an agreement between the parties. A judge can't award it, but the parties can agree to set maintenance for an definite period of time. 3 years, 5 years, or however long the parties agree that that spouse needs maintenance in order to give them time to become self-sufficient.
Yeah, and the thing about maintenance and alimony from my business standpoint is, we're always looking at the ability for it to continue for at least 3 years. And so what people don't realize is, child support, for instance, it's only guaranteed till 18, like you said. And so once a child hits 15, I can no longer use that child support for qualifying purposes. So again, talk to an attorney, talk to someone like myself. But when you're talking about maintenance and alimony, it can lead to a lot of problems if your kids are a little older in life. So, well, I'll tell you what, we'll take a quick break and then we'll be back with more questions from Stephanie Fortis at Sindel Noble. You've probably heard that interest rates are low again, and most experts are predicting they go even lower. The term being thrown around is buying power or purchasing power. What most people don't realize is that 1% in interest rate is going to equal 10% in such buying power. For example, if you were thinking about buying a home for $400,000 just 9 months ago, today you could buy a $440,000 house and have the exact same payment. But rates are going lower. Why would I not wait? Well, the simple answer is nobody knows for sure. Take advantage of this amazing opportunity while it's still here. And worst case scenario, we'll refinance you again in 6 to 12 months into an even lower interest rate. Shoot me a message and let's talk. All right, welcome back. I'm here with Stephanie Fortis at Sindel Noble. Stephanie, I got a few more questions for you. Well, here's one that you brought up to me, and I guess I've thought about it, never really knew the rules behind it and some of the ways you can get in trouble, but inherited property. When one party in the marriage inherits property, even if you're not facing a divorce, what are some ways that can become a marital asset?
It's a good question, and it's an important question, and it's important information for people to know. If you inherit property, that property by law is separate property and not divisible by the divorce court. However, you can go ahead and change that separate property to marital property if you're not careful. For example, you may refinance property, and the other spouse may start using their income to pay the new mortgage. You can use a sum of marital money to make improvements to that house, for example. So there are all sorts of ways that if you're not careful, the other spouse in a divorce can make a claim that now you have transferred that asset from separate property to marital property. So my advice to everyone, if they inherit a substantial asset, is to talk to a divorce lawyer before they make any changes to that asset.
Right. And the same goes with cash too, right? I mean, you inherit cash, put it in a joint account, it's at risk, and you're going to have to retrace when you got the money and hopefully work it all out, or is that not the case?
Oh, that's absolutely the case. So your best bet is to, if you have inherited property, put that in an account in your name and then get on the phone with a divorce lawyer, because we can tell you how to keep that property from being commingled or transmuted into marital property.
Wow. Okay, good to know. Well, last question I have for you. Couples often come to me, they talk about refinancing as they're going through the divorce. Do you recommend they do it as they're going through the divorce, or actually wait until that divorce is final?
I would recommend that they wait until the end. There are situations where people can make agreements at the beginning. I would dissuade them from doing so until everybody has lawyers and we can memorialize those agreements. Otherwise, waiting until the end, I think, is the best decision to make.
Right. And it can muddy the waters because you got to either do marital rights waivers or you're getting involved in stuff, and it's stay in your lane, right? Let an attorney handle it, and then we'll take care of it at the end.
That's absolutely right.
Right. So, well, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me. If anybody wanted to reach you out there, talk about divorce, or even had some more questions, how would they reach you?
Well, they can go to our website at travisnoble.com, or they can call me anytime at the office. So I'm easily accessible.
Yeah. Easily accessible, but very busy, as I found out. So, well, thank you for making the time, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Dollars and Cents. If you know of anybody that could potentially benefit from this, please share the video with family and friends. Thank you.